Well, hey, this is Mike from Music City. Welcome to the latest installment of Ranking Records. And today we're going to look at the musical history of one of my favorite all time artists and one of my favorite all time great live performers, and that's Mr. David Johansen, who we see in that poster over there. That's one of my prized possessions, a poster for David's show at the Bottom Line in New York in 1978 that I got to see. And we're going to talk about that a little bit when we go through his catalog. But just strap yourself in, and we're going to look at the musical history of the recorded output of David Johansen. Okay, here I am back in my more usual Ranking Records position, and we're going to look through 15 CDs today that David Johansen has been associated with. And first, what I want to do is go through them in sort of a historical perspective. And also, there's a couple of live albums that I'll mention on the way, but there's 15 records or studio records. And then when it's all said and done, I'll do a ranking on them. And man, I got to be honest with you, I pretty much like everything that David's ever been associated with. So this is really going to be a least favorite to favorite situation, not best to worst, worst to best. But as you probably know, back in 1973, David started out as the lead singer of the New York Dolls. And gosh, I hate to get into this discussion of, where did punk rock start and all that kind of stuff, but you really got to say that this album was very influential in the start of the whole punk and glam rock movement. And I even got to see the Dolls back in 73, and I hate to admit it, I was a little too young to appreciate it. I didn't know what to say about seeing these guys, playing somewhat sloppy and dressed in drag. Oh, come on. We actually made fun of them, and I really regret that to this day. And in a sort of way, I wish I was a few years older and had gotten to see a lot of the shows that they were playing around the city back then. This record was produced by Todd Rundgren, who was really producing, almost, he was the producer in demand in those days. And Todd did a great job on it. And the show that I actually saw them was at the Felt Forum, which was a theater behind the Madison Square Garden. They may call it the theater at Madison Square Garden today. And they opened up for Mott the Hoople, a band that I was really nuts about back then. And Todd actually introduced the Dolls back then for that show that night. Now, a year later, they put out a follow-up record called Too Much Too Soon in 1974. Again, both of these were the original lineup of the Dolls. Let's run through. It was, David Johansen, lead singer, Johnny Thunders on guitar, Syl Sylvain on rhythm guitar, Arthur Kane on bass, and Jerry Nolan on drums. And here's the sad thing to say, Syl Sylvain died here in Nashville just a week or two ago, and right now David Johansen is the last man standing for the New York Dolls. So God, it's time moves on, and people are leaving us in the rock world. It's tough to deal with, but for all that people thought the Dolls were so different and radical. Man, it just was basic rock and roll. They had a lot of respect for tradition. They did some great cover versions on these first two records. And the producer of this record, they went for a guy named Shadow Morton, who was a 60s producer of girl groups like the Shangri-Las, etc. And so, really shows you where they were coming from. Now, for the next couple of years, this original Dolls lineup, sort of started to fall apart. And during this period of the next 3-4 years, a lot of different formations of the Dolls were around, and there was actually a couple of releases during this period, but they're not considered official releases. They were sort of fan clubbish. They're kind of this gray area, whether they're legal or not. And there were some live shows, some with demos and things like that. But I have them. I listen to them, but I'm not going to include them today. But things really happened in a big way in 1978 when David went solo and released his debut solo album, David Johansen. I love this record. This is just a fantastic record. Syl Sylvain was part of this record with him, and he put together a fabulous band at the time, and they called them the David Johansen Group. And here's a live CD of one of you saw the poster of the Bottom Line show. Here is a live CD of one of those shows. Now, it came out at the time on a promo vinyl LP, and then Razor and Tie released this a number of years later. Or no, it wasn't Razor and Tie. It was out on Epic. I thought it was Razor and Tie, but and they actually have some extra tracks on it. So what a great band he had for this record, and what a great record that was. So that was in '78. And then when he put out a string, there's 4 David Johansen solo albums. A year later in '79, he followed out with In Style, and I got this one autographed by David a couple of years ago. In 1981, he put out Here Comes the Night. And the thing about this record, he teamed up with this gentleman right here, Blondie Chaplin. And I don't know if you're familiar with Blondie. Blondie's a South African musician who was a member of the Beach Boys at one time. And Blondie, great artist, and their collaborations on this record were great together. And then in 1984, he put out what would be his last album under the name David Johansen, a record called Sweet Revenge. Then, what happened next? Well, we had the transformation of David Johansen to his alter ego, Buster Poindexter. Now, Buster Poindexter, your lounge lizard, you can see the way he's dressed. And if you don't know anything about Buster Poindexter, I did a write-up on my blog, Music City Mike, that you might want to read, give you a little bit more of the history. But, he often said that it was he wanted to do a show that would only play in New York, and pretty much that's what it did. It started out at Tramp's nightclub down in the Village, and then it wound up being at the Bottom Line. And I mean, the shows were fantastic. What we're talking about mostly is David doing cover versions of old classic blues songs, and and as some of you know, may remember, a big hit came out of this record, the song called Hot, 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 which was actually a soca song by the artist was named Arrow. It's not an original David Johansen song, and I think for a long time it was like the most popular song you'd ever hear at a wedding. But I love the Buster Poindexter character. Now, I didn't mention solo shows of David Johansen during that 4-album period. I saw 11 shows. That's how much I love seeing him. And he seemed to play a lot in the New York, New Jersey area. But I saw 20 Buster Poindexter shows back in the day and loved each and every one of them. And I sort of had a thing where I wanted to take everybody. I took my wife, I took my mom and my dad, my brother. I took co-workers and friends, and no one ever left a Buster Poindexter show unhappy. My only regret about Buster, and you'll see that we've had a total of 4 Buster Poindexter albums that came out in sequence here, is that they really missed the boat. That while I like these records, and it's nice to have documents of the songs he was doing in the show, which these albums are for the most part, man, it really, really deserved a live album and a live video. I mean, it was so entertaining. That's really what should have been. Now, and I don't know if you remember this at the time, there was a year, and I'm not sure what year it was, and I think there's some clips on YouTube, but he was actually the featured singer with the Saturday Night Live band. So there are a lot of good Buster performances documented there. And and one thing you got to do is go to YouTube and see his interview with Johnny Carson. It's hysterical. It's you can find that from the Tonight Show. But so that was 87, and then 89. Its follow-up was Buster Goes Berserk. In 1994, Buster's Happy Hour. And then in 1997, a little bit of diversion, Buster's Spanish Rocket Ship. He kind of got into a big Latin vibe, and not so much, what you heard in the Buster Poindexter show. So, Buster kind of went away for a while, came back. Recently, I saw him 2 years ago at the City Winery Loft, which sadly is not there anymore, and he did a great show. It was Buster Poindexter sings the songs of David Johansen. So he only sang songs that he actually wrote, going back to the Dolls days, his solo days, and some of the Buster songs. There were a few, songs that he wrote mixed in there. But never one to be boring. In 2000, he came up with a little, not so much an alter ego, but a little change in direction, and he released a record called David Johansen and the Harry Smiths. Now, if you don't remember who Harry Smith was, he was the ethnomusicologist who put together that anthology of American folk music that came out around this time, big box set. And he's the guy that used to go around doing field recordings, with rudimentary equipment and capturing all these folk and blues songs. And that's kind of what David did here is revisit a lot of those old, many traditional songs. And he followed it up 2 years later in 2002 with another Harry Smith's record called Shaker. Now, I never got to see them perform, and kind of wish I would have. But one phase of his career, I don't know how much he toured, and with that, he probably did some shows in the New York area. I never didn't get a chance. Then, what happened? I'm not sure. I don't have the year right. Oh man, I gotta do something. Let me do something. One thing. Let me back a little bit. During the solo career, I've really got to make mention of this 82 live record that came out called Live It Up. I don't like to rank live records, but this was really a big moment for David because on it had his Animals medley, which was really in heavy rotation on MTV. So something a little different. He hasn't recorded a studio version of that, so it was on this great record, Live It Up. Now, the David Johansen group changed a little bit, and he had a different band here. And interesting to note, if you know that I'm a fan of the band, the Records, original Records guitarist Hugh Gower was the guitar player for David at this time. So I wanted to mention that. But let's let the next live album lead into the final phase of David's recorded career that we're going to go over. And that was in 2006 when the New York Dolls played the Royal Festival Hall in London as part of the Meltdown Festival, because the curator that year was none other than Morrissey of the Smiths, who, in his younger days, in his youth, he was the president of the British New York Dolls fan club. So he got the Dolls back together, and they recorded a live album. That's really fun. And I love David's sense of humor. He makes a great comment in here about how they got to spend some time with Morrissey, and they went and visited some kids in the hospital so Morrissey could cheer them up. We know how cheerful Morrissey can be. But anyway, it was a great thing that Morrissey did. And excuse me for having a drink there. But there was 3 living Dolls at the time: David, Syl Sylvain, and Arthur Kane, the bass player, who they pulled out of retirement. There's a great DVD you can see about the story about Arthur Kane. It's called New York Doll. And sadly, Arthur died a month after this reunion, so that was pretty tragic. But what did this lead to? It led to a reuse of the New York Dolls names. Now, so starting in 2008, 3 records came out under the name New York Dolls, and I'll be honest with you, Syl Sylvain is on them, but for the most part, they could have been David Johansen albums, but why not use use the New York Dolls name? And 2008, they put "One Day It Will Please Us to Remember Even This," and I got it autographed by the whole band. This was the second time I saw the Dolls. They did the Little Steven's Underground Garage tour and played here in Nashville, and they did a great show. And then the next year, in 2009, guess what? They reunited with Todd Rundgren as producer and did "Cause I Says So." And then the last recorded output from David was in 2011, New York Dolls record called Dancing Backward in High Heels. So there you have the 15 records and a little bit of history on it. If you're a completist and a nut like me, there's also 2 compilation CDs that I've got. One called Looking Good and one called, what is that called? Crucial Music. So, if you want to just get a little taste, and I'm sure that almost everything we looked at today is pretty easily available. It's great to get those 2 Dolls albums on vinyl, which I'm proud to say I have. You might want to do that. But let's just take a pause. I'm going to reshuffle these CDs, and then we're going to rank them from my least favorite to favorite. Okay, CDs are shuffled and ready for the ranking. Remember, least favorite to favorite. At number 15, I'm going to put Buster Poindexter's Spanish Rocket Ship. I just really didn't care for it very much. Like I said, it was a style very different from the live shows. Most of the songs were salsa, Latin, dance-driven. Reminiscent of one of his best Buster Poindexter songs, one he wrote called Cannibal. But you know what? One song in the set of that style was kind of enough for me, and a whole album of this just didn't hold up well. I enjoy listening to it. It's not a horrible record, but just like I said, it's my least favorite. And then at excuse me, 13 and 14, I'm going to put the two Harry Smith records. I like them, but it's not the best, my favorite phase of the Johansen career. So I'm going to put at number 14, Shaker, and number 13, the debut album. I think I cared for the song selection a little bit more in this one. Like them, but don't love them. Okay, and then number 12 and number 11, and I'm going to ask for you guys to help me on this if I'm wrong, if you're a big Dolls fan, but I really wasn't wild about these two Dolls records. Cause I Said So and Dancing Backwards in High Heels. They're okay. I just didn't fall in love with them that much and didn't listen to them enough. I think I really wasn't ready for, to see, another version of the Dolls with a lot of different players in it. Preferred seeing David solo, and I didn't get to see him tour either one of these records. So we'll put Cause I Said So at 12 and Dancing Backward in High Heels at 11. Number 10, we're going to put Buster Goes Berserk. We're getting to the point here where, this is a pretty good record. I mean, it's got Hit the Road Jack, which was a great duet with Susie Tyrell Kirshner. It was the old song made famous by Ray Charles. A good record. And it's also got a great Who Threw the Whiskey in the Well. I love that song too. Great songs in the live show. Now, here's something I want to talk about. Let's talk about that live Buster Poindexter band for a minute. And all of the Buster shows I saw in New York back in the day, the bass player was Tony Garnier. Tony Garnier has since gone on to be Bob Dylan's bass player, and has probably been Bob Dylan's bass player for a good 30 years now. And then two other prominent members of the Banshees of Blue, which was Buster's band's called, are now members of the E Street Band. The aforementioned Susie Tyrell Kirshner plays violin, acoustic guitar, and sings background vocals with Bruce. And then also, after the death of Danny Federici on organ, Charlie Giordano, who actually was the second keyboard player in the Banshees, became a member of the E Street Band. So, interesting connection about the great players that were in Buster's band. Now let's go to number 9. I'm going to put the last Johansen solo record, "Sweet Revenge." Good record. I really enjoyed the song. I'm looking. "I Ain't Working No More" was a great song, and one I wish Buster would have done. Number 8, back to Buster with Buster's Happy Hour. This was a good one. It picked up a lot of the great songs from the live set that weren't on the debut record. So this is definitely a great record to have. We go to number 7. I'm going to go with that Return Dolls record. One Day It Will Please to Remember Even This. I like I said, I saw the show on this one. I enjoyed it. When I saw that Buster Poindexter Sings David Johansen show, he did a couple of songs off of here. I really like the song "Plenty of Music." Was a great one off of that record. Got to hear him do that. But I really thought this was a very, very noble effort by them. Number 6, we'll go with the debut Buster Poindexter record. Again, I wish it was a live record, but this is great. It's got Hot Hot on here, we mentioned before. It's got Cannibal, which was such a great song that David did, and it's also got got a great selection of like I said, the songs from the show. Now, then for number 5, we're going to go with "Here Comes the Night," the record he did with Blondie Chaplin. Now, Bohemian Love Pad could have, should have been an original Doll song, but I tell you though, the masterpiece on this is may very well be the greatest song that David Johansen's ever written, and certainly the one with the most crossover appeal, and that's "Heart of Gold." And I hate to say it, reminds me of my mom. My late mom loved that "Heart of Gold," and "Heart of Gold" was a regular staple of the Buster Poindexter show. Usually would close the set or be near the very, very end. So we're gonna "Here Comes the Night" makes number 5. Number 4, we're gonna go with the second Dolls record. I still enjoy listening to this record today. I'm looking at tracks here: "Babylon," "Stranded in the Jungle," and Bad Detective. I think that was the Coasters made Bad Detective popular. And I mentioned David just had a great knack for cover songs, and I think this is a great record. Now, number 3, 1978-79's In Style. Just a fantastic Johansen record, and so many classic songs came out of this. Melody, Swahito Woman, sort of get a little, David goes a little disco there. Reckless Crazy. I just always really enjoyed this album. And Melody, I think, is one of the best songs he ever wrote. And that was on the Buster does David Johansen show. That was a really, really nice version of that. Now, we're down to 2 records left. And okay, this is where some of you may jump on me, but I'm going to put the debut Dolls album at number 2. I love this record. It was so influential. Personality Crisis, Looking for a Kiss. I mean, probably every time I saw David, he had to do those 2 songs, and I'm so glad he did. What was the cool cover version? I can't remember. I thought Pills was on here. Pills is on here. The old Bo Diddley song, Pills, is on here, and it's a great version of that. But I love this record. But number 1, David Johansen, one of my top 10 albums of all time. This is a fantastic record. David just really hit at the right moment, had that week of sold-out shows at the bottom line, went on to get his MTV fame with that live album, I think. But, I mean, gosh, Funky But Chic. Come on, tell me that is not a rock and roll classic. I always loved Girls, Cool Metro, Frenchette. Oh, my gosh. Frenchette and Funky But Chic, 2 just fantastic songs. Give this one a listen if you never have it. It's one, like I said, it is in my top 10 albums of all time. Whew, we got a lot in there, and I know this ran long, but we went through a lot of records, and this was a lot of fun. I just love David Johansen, and God bless him. Maybe he be with us a long time, and post-pandemic, I really want to see some more David Johansen shows. So thanks for listening. If you like it, hit the like button. Share it with your friends on your socials. And please, if you haven't so far, subscribe. Remember, my goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I'm at 617 right now. We can do it. So thanks so much, and keep on rocking. I wish I had a great David Johansen quote to close on, but maybe next time. Bye now.